I think any interpretation of the crop circles is very problematic. One has to be very careful. I think the first and most important thing is to understand the physical effect on the ground. If it can be shown physically and demonstrated that that crop circle has been produced by some energetic or paranormal source, and then yeah, it's very much opened up for interpretation as to where it come from and what it means. And if it can be isolated and understood as a hoax, then that needs to be put out there, and it needs to be understood in that context, because if people make wild, fluffy interpretations about a crop circle that has been man-made, then you would have to understand the motivation of the people that done it. It becomes very, very complicated, and in my opinion a waste of time, because most hoaxer people that I'm aware of are just conning people. You know, they're out there for fun, they got egos, they're doing it for money or ego trips or whatever. I'd be extremely wary about interpreting any crop circle that has been that can be shown to have been produced by people. And I think when it comes to the genuine phenomena, I think all people can do really is speculate. We do not know where they're coming from, okay? I mean, my feeling is, for what it's worth, and it's only a feeling, is that the genuine phenomena is manifest through some kind of interdimensional or from some kind of parallel reality, as if a space within our three-dimensional reality is isolated. The effect happens, and then the space returns back to the original three-dimensional space. But I think there's a process which involves isolating a space, creating the effect, and then going away and leaving the impression on the ground with no damage, no traces of any physical effect on the ground. Those crop circles are amazing and fascinating, and I think they should be speculated upon. They should be investigated with science, with technology, with intelligence. And when that is taken as far as it can go, and then I think, you know, there's room for metaphysical interpretation and who knows what. But I think the key thing first really is to understand where that crop circle came from, and that can be done on the ground with physical examination and investigation. But there are many researchers out there that don't want this to happen, because it would pretty much clearly demonstrate that lots and lots and lots of the crop circles are man-made. You know, we're probably, you know, 80, 90, 95% of the crop circles, you can never be quite sure, because you would have to examine all of them to be absolutely sure. But a very, very large proportion of the crop circles, in my experience, are man-made, you know. I think this year, you know, 2012, I've examined, you know, dozens of crop circles. And this year, 2012, I think I've seen 3 crop circles in this whole season, which to me represent a genuine phenomena. This is a non-physical interaction with our three-dimensional space by something from somewhere else, which has left an impression in our landscape for some reason. And beyond that, it's really hard to say why or how. But the physical effect left on the ground at Knoll Down, 26th of June 2012, that formation is confirmed as appearing in daylight within a very short window of opportunity, which is a very rare thing. And the physical effect on the ground in the young green plants clearly, absolutely clearly indicated through observed investigation on the ground that the effect in the wheat plants is not something that could be reproduced or replicated by people, however clever they were at making a shape, because we had, you know, rigid angular bending on the stems of the plants. If I take a wheat plant and try and bend it like this, it will break or it will snap, and it will leave a very ugly, obvious mechanical kind of damage. Something happened in that field which left effectively a small seamless crop circle that did not have any of the indications of human construction, and besides that it had physical effects in the plants that could not be reproduced. There was actually a second formation this year also at Etchelhampton Hill, just around about 7 or 8 miles south of our current location here at Yatesbury, which had a relatively similar effect on the ground. You know, very smaller formation. Not many people paid attention to it because it wasn't big or pretty, and it didn't quite measure for many people as a genuine formation, because most people have it in their mind that for a formation to be genuine it has to be really big and perfect and pretty, but this is really not the case. Quite often we're finding as field investigators that very, very often a lot of the more simplistic, basic, organic looking designs, they're the ones that are real, where something genuine paranormal has happened. And the ironic thing is that these are often being overlooked by the so-called researchers, because many researchers have this preconceived idea in their minds about what's real and what's not. So they take on board, for a little formation like Knoll Down, 26th of June, or the one on Etchelhampton Hill, because it was small and relatively insignificant physically to look at, these things don't get any attention, when to me these were actually the most interesting and important circles of the year. That's not to say that some of the large complex circles are not measured as genuine. I think the largest formation ever to appear over at Milk Hill, again it's just 10 miles south of where we are right now, the 11th, 12th of August 2001, the largest formation to ever appear happened on top of a hill. Down there we're talking about a formation measuring in diameter 900 feet, consisting of 409 circles, all laid out in a kind of a form of a galaxy, a spiral arm galaxy, and covering an undulating hilltop. So we're looking at several acres of flattened crop, specifically 700,000 square feet of flattened crop, known to have appeared within a window of around about 5 hours of darkness. And over that night there was a really bad storm going on. It was the worst storm of that summer. From the point of view of human hoaxing, it would have been the one night of the entire summer when you wouldn't have gone out to try and produce the largest crop circle ever. And so heavily undulating hilltop, wind, rain, you wouldn't have even been able to communicate with other people beyond maybe 15-20 meters. It's atrocious, absolutely horrible weather conditions. I was out on a surveillance at night myself. I got wet and cold, and I actually remember thinking at that night, there's no way on earth anybody's going to be out faking circles tonight. It's just too horrible out. And we got to that formation early in the morning the next day, and as field investigators, however big or impressive the circle is, or however small it is, we'd approach it with the same thing. We don't know anything about this until we get in and we just examine it for the physical effect on the ground of human hoaxing. And I must say, the biggest formation that ever occurred in the world did not have the signs of human intervention on, that was... Typically, if people make a physically produce a crop circle in the rain, in the dark, and they leave a lot of mud on the plants, there's a lot of damage, if it's a team effort, done by people, say, oh yeah, 20 people made that one, you would see 20 different styles on the ground, because if you and me went out to make a crop circle, you weigh a bit less than I do, you would do less damage than I would, because your body weight is different, we'd all have a different, if you go to a gallery and you look at a painting, and the painting's been painted by 6 different people, you'll see 6 different styles, and it's the same with a crop circle, you would expect in a genuine formation to have a smooth, seamless effect over the entire event, as if it was all produced by a single entity, not 10 different entities. And that was the case up on Milk Hill with the largest formation ever. That was the case up on Knoll Down, 26th of June 2012. A single seamless effect left on the ground, which is clean, does not have footprints, does not have crushed and broken plants, indicating that something else happened there. And that was the case with Milk Hill 2001. Also very interesting, I spent an afternoon measuring one of the arms at Milk Hill, which was 70 or so circles, and a lot of the circles were on kind of a sloping ground, a lot of the circles were on flat ground, and it was very interesting from a measuring point of view that the circles that I measured that were on sloping ground were elliptical, and the circles which I measured on flat ground were round. So from the air, all of the circles looked round. Now, to physically produce that effect on the ground, just to create an elliptical circle to look perfectly round from the air would be very difficult, and there were hundreds of them in that formation. The basic logistical task of producing that over such a short time, in fact it worked out, if you were creating that formation physically, given the available hours of darkness, it would have been necessary to produce one circle about every 30 seconds, 409 circles over 5 or so hours. That's a challenging task at any rate. I mean, I've spoken to professional surveyors, people that map out plans and buildings for a living. If I offer you this as a challenge, you bring your team out. If I hire you to make me this, how long would it take? How long would it on undulating land in the dark, given all of the circumstances as the formation actually was? Could you do it? How long would it take? What kind of tools would you need, and how much would it cost? And professional engineers and surveyors were telling me that it would probably take at least a whole day of daylight just to peg and mark a pattern out of such an enormous size and scale and relative complexity. And if we had to flatten 700,000 feet of crop down as well, then we probably need another day. But it all happened in 5 hours, in the dark, in a storm, and there was no mud on the plants, there was no footprints, it was clean, it was a seamless effect on the ground, as if the whole thing had happened pretty much in one go over a relatively short time. And, I've examined hundreds and hundreds of circles over the years. That one remains a mystery.